two. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
I am. I'm adding to the chaos.
Yes.
Sorry. Check 1 2. 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 Check 1 2 2 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Good evening. I call this August 23rd meeting of the Morrisville Town Council to order. Thank you to those watching via live stream and those who are watching a recording of this meeting. On August 29th, a video of this meeting will be uploaded to www.townofmorrisville.org/government/live-video. Our Town Council chambers in Town Hall are currently undergoing audio-visual renovation, so this meeting is actually taking place in the Morrisville Senior Center. It's a great facility. We're glad to be using it. Sergeant Penland, tonight's Sergeant at Arms, has been a law enforcement officer for 21 years and is currently assigned to the Field Operations Division. Thank you for being with us this evening. At this time, the invocation will be delivered by Councilmember Fender. Yep.
You guys hear me okay? Okay, this is a Celtic prayer from Marine Killoran. Spirit of all blessing, be with us. In the ordinariness of our days, may hope's light guard us and keep cynicism from our hearts. May the energy of laughter build endurance for the dark times of our lives. May creativity's vision grant the possibility of seeing old relationships with new eyes. May the oil of healing keep us from anger's hardness or despair. May the mantle of humility give courage to admit when we are wrong. May compassion's loom weave in us the discipline to forgive. May patience help us bear in mind that ours is not the only scale of time. May the flame of justice be a beacon for the choices we must make. May peace be ever in us and sustain our stressful days. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. Thank you.
Thank you. All who are able, please stand and join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. See it on the monitors around you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't have to sing the national anthem tonight. Excuse me. Before we adopt tonight's agenda, Town Council policy is to review and ensure there are no conflicts of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share at this time? Okay. Before we adopt, I'd like to request that we remove item 6B, as in boy, from the consent agenda, as the agenda packet does not include those draft minutes. Are there any other suggested changes to tonight's agenda? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda with that modification?
I make a motion for this, to approve this meeting's, this agenda with that modification.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously, 7-0. There are 5 items on this evening's consent agenda, and now 4 because we removed one. Signature authorization for maps, plats, and other property documents, and approval of 1 June Town Council minutes and 2 July Town Council minutes. Would anyone like to pull any of those items for discussion? Okay, is there a motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously, 7-0. There is one administrative report tonight, a quarterly capital projects update. These administrative reports are provided as information-only items unless council has any questions. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, we are moving right along. We have 4 presentations tonight. Morrisville Little League recognition, the introduction of the new Public Works Director, a Public Works accreditation presentation, and a Greater Triangle Commuter Rail project update. Brian Ray, Athletic Supervisor, will facilitate the Morrisville Little League recognition.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, staff. This evening, we want to thank you for allowing us to come before you and present a token of appreciation and achievement to our first All-Star Little League team from Morrisville. Morrisville has had a sanctioned Little League program in the Southeast region representing North Carolina's 6th District since 2017. With the support of longstanding local and district Little League programs, Morrisville has been building its league with quality play in mind. Our league works to provide opportunities to all interested players, as well as those that have a desire for competitive playing experience. Having our players participate alongside players from established leagues such as Clayton Little League, Southern Durham Little League, and Bull City Little League, which represented the state of North Carolina in the Southeast region this season, will help build courage, character, and loyalty. We strive to promote and expect good sportsmanship from our players, coaches, volunteers, and spectators. We hope to continue to support and promote baseball in our community with help from local stakeholders as long as town resources. At this time, players, please step forward to receive your certificate of achievement. This evening, we're going to name all 13 players on the team. We only have today with us 5 and our coach. We'll start with Jackson Cooper Moore. Derek Alamedia. Eli Bakazan. Cameron Beal. Desmond Maxwell Champagne, Bryson Scott Diggs, Rohan Ram Dukapati, Rylan Gaffney, Trevor B. Galloway, Trenton Michael Carrick, Henry Corda, Mingkoi Nguyen, and Landon Levon Ward. We'd like to give a special thanks to Steve Ward. We asked him to join us at this time. Steve is our coach. Steve has been a volunteer coach with us for, I would say, over 10 years at this point. He has volunteer coached for basketball, not only with Landon, but with his daughter Leah. He is an integral part of the community that we have here in Morrisville when it comes to sports. At this time, we have an additional presentation that we would like to have. So we're asking the players to take a step out. Council members, if you can fill in behind them, we have something for council as well. So, as a tradition with Little League, players participate and they receive pins for either their season or their postseason play. This year at the tournament, our players received their District 6 tournament pin, and we have one for each of the council members this evening. Way, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, Matt, the whole team. And it takes a lot of work to make a league work. And having an all-star team is really a big step for the town, so we really appreciate that. Thank you all very much. Giselle Rodriguez, Assistant Town Manager, will introduce our new Public Works Director and then facilitate the Public Works Accreditation presentation. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. So my first presentation this evening is to formally introduce to you the new Public Works Director, Jeffrey Brown. I have a few remarks of Jeffrey that I would like to share with you. Jeffrey is a professional engineer with more than 20 years of experience working directly in public works field with both state and local government experience. He earned a bachelor degree in biological and agricultural engineering from North Carolina State University. He began his career in local government and as a staff engineer and progressed rapidly to Director of Engineering and Infrastructure Department for the City of Fayetteville. Jeffrey has direct experience in construction management, engineering, facilities and grounds, fleet services, public utilities, real estate, solid waste, including an landfill, stormwater management, streets, traffic services. Prior to coming to Morrisville, he was serving as the Internal Services Manager for Cumberland County. I would like to highlight at least 3 of his accomplishments. He effectively managed the collection and monitoring of the vegetative and construction debris generated from the tornadoes in 2011 while serving with the city of Fayetteville, and for Hurricane Matthew and Florence while serving the Cumberland County. He oversaw the construction and operations of Cumberland County's first portable water system for residents in the Grace Creek community. In addition to these duties as the Engineering and Infrastructure Director, Jeffrey served as the Interim Solid Waste Director for Cumberland County on 2 separate occasions, with each period lasting over a year each time. The operations of the Solid Waste Department included the management of landfills, the wood processing facility, and 17 convenience centers across the county. During this time, Jeffrey became certified by Solid Waste of North Carolina as a manager of landfill operations. Today marks his 17th day on the job. We are honored that he chose Morrisville to continue his public service career and are very proud to have him on the team. So Jeffrey, if you can please join me over here so they can officially see you. So this is Jeffrey, and Jeffrey, if you would like to share some remarks.
Okay, thank you, Giselle. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. I want to thank town management for having confidence in me and selecting me to be the new Public Works Director for the town of Morrisville. It has been a great pleasure to be here for what, you say, 17 days now? Everyone has went out of their way to welcome me. It has been very pleasant. Everybody I've came in contact with has been nothing more than gracious, offered me a smile and a handshake and anything that I needed to get settled in, especially to the Public Works staff that are here. I've only known them for 17 days, but I look forward to working with them, and they have been very supportive thus far. And I can assure you we are going to continue to build on the foundation that Giselle has started in the Public Works, and that we expect great things from our department to come. So thank you, and I look forward to working with each of you moving forward.
Thank you and welcome.
This next presentation is one that brings a lot of pride, makes me very proud of the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department received accreditation 4 years ago, and now it was time to get re-accredited because the accreditation only lasts for 4 years. So Public Works staff has gone through that process, but I'm not going to steal the thunder of our next presenter. And they have made a great accomplishment that we would like to present this evening. So we have the honor of having the president-elect of American Public Works Association here to present this recognition. His name is Keith Pugh. He currently serves as the president-elect. He will become president in 5 days. Sunday, August the 28th in Charlotte, North Carolina, during the association's international conference, and that will be just this weekend. He graduated with a Bachelor in Civil Engineering from North Carolina State University December of 1987, and immediately began his public services career with the city of Greensboro. He held numerous jobs with increasing responsibility during his tenure with Greensboro. He received his professional engineer license in 1995. In January 2004, Pugh left the city after 16 years to become the City of High Point's Director of Engineering Services. He retired from the City of High Point in July of 2019 and now serves as Client Success Manager with Withers Ravenel, based in Cary, North Carolina. So without further ado, I'll leave you with Keith Pugh for the presentation of the Public Works Re-Accreditation.
And I'll go ahead and apologize up front. I am going to work off a script because if I do not, we could be here all night. Mayor, council members, manager, city staff, and members of the public. We thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you this evening. Indeed, a pleasure to be here with you. Since retiring from public service 3 years ago, I've had the opportunity to work with numerous municipalities across North Carolina concerning their public works operations and infrastructure. In my role with APWA, I travel across North America and I meet with public works officials. As a member of the National Board of Directors, I represent more than 30,000 public works professionals across North America. Prior to becoming president-elect, I served as the Region 3 Director, which includes Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, D.C., Maryland, Kentucky, and Tennessee, which is now my home state. All of that to simply say this. Today marks the culmination of a long and sometimes painful process. Accreditation and the subsequent re-accreditation are the mark of professionalism indicating that a public works agency has made the commitment to continuous improvement in the delivery of the operations and services to the community it serves. Accreditation recognizes an agency's policies, procedures, and practices which have been evaluated against nationally recognized best management practices determined appropriate for that specific agency. Accreditation is important to agencies seeking a method to demonstrate that the agency is well managed, it's able to demonstrate compliance with recommended practices, and dedicated to continuous improvement of public works facilities and services. Agencies first complete a self-assessment and make improvements to their operations and management policies, practices, and procedures to comply with the recommended practices established in the Public Works Management Practices Manual. Benefits to the agency include increased efficiency, improved processes, succession planning, professional recognition, and continuous improvement. The Town of Morrisville Public Works Department received its initial accreditation in December of 2017. Part of the commitment to remain an accredited agency, as Giselle said, is to go through the re-accreditation process every 4 years. This is the town's first re-accreditation effort. Town staff worked diligently since the original designation to ensure that its policies and procedures continue to meet or exceed industry standards, confirming efficiencies and identifying processes that need improvement. All of this with the intent to grow and improve and make the organization and thus the community better. Agencies are required to have 100% of their practices in substantial compliance or better. For Morrisville's re-accreditation, an APWA sanctioned team completed a virtual evaluation during June of this year. A total of 134 of the 353 possible practices were selected to be reviewed, with all 134 found to be in full compliance. In fact, one town practice was singled out as a model practice and will be shared with other agencies. And that practice is human resources management, career development, and succession planning. which is an outstanding long-range training and development plan. That also makes it easy for employees to understand what they need to work toward and how to accomplish the goals of the town. Based on these findings, the APWA Accreditation Council awarded full accreditation status to the Public Works Department for another 4 years. This is an outstanding achievement, and Steve Dickinson, the accreditation manager, Elizabeth Condroni, Senior Administrative Support Assistant, Kimberly Connolly, the Sustainability Coordinator, Stephen Spruill, the Assistant Public Works Director, Giselle Rodriguez, Assistant Town Manager but Public Works Director during the Re-Accreditation, and Jeffrey Brownell, your Public Works Director, along with the entire Public Works staff, are to be commended for this effort. Morrisville is one of just 176 agencies to achieve accreditation status across North America. You are one of 176 across the U.S. and Canada. In the state of North Carolina, the towns of Garner and Mooresville are the only other 2 accredited agencies. Please remember, accreditation is a program of continuous improvement, and the designation is awarded for a 4-year period. We anticipate visiting with you again in 26 as your agency applies for its 2nd re-accreditation. Would like to pause at this moment and take the opportunity to introduce you to the individual who replaces me on the APWA Board of Directors as the Region 3 Director. And I don't know how many of you know this, but Mr. Jeffrey Brown, your new Public Works Director. Jeffrey was chosen for this role after I was selected to serve as President-elect in March of this year. In this capacity, Jeffrey serves alongside 17 others from across North America to advance our profession and serve our membership. Specifically, Jeffrey represents APWA members from North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, DC, and Maryland. I served in that role for 5.5 years, found it extremely rewarding professionally and personally. By speaking with other public works professionals, attending the educational conferences, and leading the organization in this capacity, I was able to bring home and implement several great ideas, improve my leadership, improve my public speaking skills. As an engineer, that's always an issue. And I was able to learn from success stories as well as challenges. I was also able to expand my network of professional contacts, which allows me to simply pick up the phone, make a call when I have a problem or what I think is a unique situation. And almost immediately I can receive feedback or possible solutions. So thank you for your organizational support of Jeffrey as he continues in this role. So back to the re-accreditation. On behalf of the American Public Works Association, it is indeed my pleasure to formally announce the full re-accreditation of the town of Morrisville's Public Works Department. This simply tells me that you folks have folks in Public Works who are doing the right things, the right way, at the right times, for the right reasons. I believe the town staff already has the plaque, and it is here with us today. And we're going to show that off to you now. And congratulations to everyone involved on a job very well done. Your residents are the true winners of accreditation, and they should be very proud of you. So, thank you. And Giselle, I'm not sure how you want to corral everybody for a photo. Okay.
We will take one picture with staff and then the second picture if council can come and join staff.
you tilt that picture down a little bit, because I'm getting a glare, sorry. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations to the team, and as was noted, congratulations to our resident and business community. They are the true winners when Public Works does a great job and is efficient. It helps us all so very much. Now we are going to move on. Danielle Kittredge, Senior Planner, will make the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail Project Update presentation. Ms. Kittredge.
All right. Danielle Kittredge here. I'm here to introduce your next presentation. We have Catherine Eggleston from Triangle, who is giving an update on the Commuter Triangle Commuter Rail project. They have been very busy. There is a phase 2 feasibility study that's expected to be released relatively soon for public comment. So Catherine will give some of the updates on that and kind of the next steps. So with that, I will introduce Catherine.
Thank you. Catherine Eggleston, Chief Development Officer with Go Triangle. Apologies in advance for your, I think it's third presentation from an engineer this evening, but we'll do my best to get through this here. So as Danielle said, we have been at Go Triangle working on this second phase of feasibility study for the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail Project for a couple of years now. We've been working together with partners, working together on this study. These ones on the left are funding partners or involved in management of the study with us. So that's the MPOs, the counties, Durham, Wake, and Johnston counties, as well as NCDOT Rail Division and North Carolina Railroad Company. Throughout the study period, we've also been coordinating with staff from each of the towns and cities in the corridor, as well as major institutions such as NC State, NC Central, Duke University, Triangle J Council of Governments, and RTP. So why are we doing this? As you all, I'm sure, have heard, our metropolitan planning organizations are projecting significant population growth in the region over the next 30 years. Even today, the Triangle has a population of around 2 million people. We currently have about 1.3 million vehicles out there on the roads. We know that even today, we have some traffic congestion on the roadways. People may have experienced some congestion getting here this evening. But over the next 30 years, the region is projected to add over 1 million additional people. So going from 2 million now to over 3 million in the future by 2050. Coming along with that, 1 million more vehicles on the roads. We see a lot more roads congested in red on this map, predicting for the future. So we have been tasked with evaluating options to travel on congested roadways, looking at a commuter rail service. So the corridor that we've been looking at for commuter rail is highlighted in this green bubble on the screen. This is a map of the location of where jobs are projected to be added over that time period between now and 2050. So you see that this job growth is projected to be very much aligned with the commuter rail corridor here. A lot in the center of the region, as well as a lot headed up north along the US 1 corridor, which also parallels the S-Line rail corridor, if you've heard of that. NCDOT is working on acquiring that from CSX to potentially have that as an option for rail service in the future as well. Looking at population growth, that's a little bit more scattered out throughout the region, although we do see some significant growth in eastern Wake County and into Johnston County as well, in addition to the areas that are more populated today. We know that southeast Wake County and Johnston County are actually some of the fastest growing areas in the entire state. So for the feasibility study for commuter rail, what have we been doing? For phase 1, we looked at a variety of scenarios of different geographies for potential commuter rail service, from as large a study area as Mebane to the west to Selma in the east. We looked at a number of different scenarios for service, from as few as 7 round trips a day, just hourly service in the peak hours with 1 train in the midday, to as much as 20 round trips or 40 trains a day with a peak focus service with half-hourly service in the peaks and then a couple trains in the midday and weekends. From that phase 1 of study, we looked in more detail at potential to implement the higher level of service, the 40 trains a day, on the geography of West Durham to Garner or Clayton. So in this phase 2 of study, that's the area that we've been looking at. The feasibility study that Danielle mentioned we're about to release, the results will have 2 options laid out there. One option would be to implement commuter rail service from West Durham to Garner or Clayton as one project, or an option 2 to begin implementation with a starter service in Southeast Wake County while we continue to work on development of the remainder of the corridor. So I'll get to a few slides here that will explain why we're looking at that. So option 1 for moving forward with the full geography from West Durham to Garner or Clayton, this is a map you're likely familiar with of the current rail line connecting Durham with RTP, Morrisville, Cary, Raleigh, and then down to Garner, and then further into Johnston County. Our updated cost estimates for this full project is in the range of $2.8 to $3.2 billion. That is a bit higher than earlier estimates, about 50% higher actually, in part due to the inflation in the construction market that we've all been experiencing, as well as additional infrastructure identified by Norfolk Southern in this phase of study, and some other things identified during the feasibility work. We also have an updated estimate for operations and maintenance costs. It's about $42 million a year, again, a little bit higher than what was assumed previously. We do also have updated ridership estimates, though, 12,000 to 18,000 boardings a day by 2040, which is also higher. So that's the good news, also higher than what had been estimated before, again, because it has those updated population and employment projections. On schedule, we're expecting that this service could be implemented by 2033 at the earliest, 2035 with more conservative assumptions. Those assume that a decision is made to move forward this year, as well as that funding is identified. So again, this cost estimate is higher than what's currently assumed in the Durham and Wake transit plans, so that would need to be addressed. The funding challenge there would need to be addressed in order for this to move forward. So that leads us to option 2. People ask, higher cost, more difficult to get started now. Is there an opportunity to implement with a phased approach, identifying a portion of the corridor that could move forward sooner or now, and then continue working on development of additional phases or extensions to be able to build out the full regional vision? So that leads us to option 2. This was identified as potentially the portion of the corridor in Southeast Wake County that could be implemented the soonest, estimated to cost between $600 and $700 million, $15 million a year to operate and maintain, would carry about a third of the ridership of the overall service, between 4,000 and 6,000 boardings a day by 2040. Just for reference, Go Triangle, prior to the pandemic, was carrying over 6,000 riders a day on our full regional service, the whole triangle. So this is a significant amount of riders. With start of service here estimated as early as 2031 or 2033 with more conservative assumptions. So again, those dates assume a decision made to move forward this year, as well as identifying funding. So why are we looking at the eastern portion as a potential for phase 1? Why was that identified in the study? So one reason is that's the area with the most robust travel demand in the model. This is just a graphic of the ridership. So we have strong ridership throughout the corridor, Durham, center of the corridor, Morrisville, as well as in Raleigh and east towards Garner. But we do see the most boardings in that southeast portion. We also have identified in the feasibility study that the challenges to implementation are not uniformly distributed across the corridor. I mentioned earlier Norfolk Southern identifying some additional rail infrastructure that was driving the costs. The majority of that is located in Durham in this red section on the map. There's a current freight yard that Norfolk Southern operates in East Durham today that would trigger the need for additional infrastructure beyond just a second track in order to implement service that could carry commuter rail on top of the existing freight and intercity Amtrak service. We've identified some coordination challenges in the central portion of the corridor as well. No additional infrastructure was identified by Norfolk Southern east of Raleigh. So again, looking just at challenges to implementation or what you might be able to get started with soonest, we're seeing that in the eastern portion of the corridor. We do believe, though, that if a decision was made to go with option 2 to implement this service as a starter or as a phase 1, that we could also continue working to develop extensions to Morrisville, RTP, Durham in the future. The exact schedule for that has not been proposed at this time. That is something that we would be working with partners. If there is interest in the phased approach, we'll be working with partners to identify what that schedule would be, how we would be able to pay for it over time, be able to implement extensions to the west. As part of the feasibility study, we also looked at some of the technical challenges in the corridor, downtown Cary, downtown Durham. We have a couple visualizations here of what it would look like to add an additional track through these areas. These areas are very complex where we have an existing Amtrak station. This visualization is showing a new Amtrak station in downtown Cary, west of Harrison Avenue, co-located with Cary's multimodal transit facility projects, kind of highlighted in this rectangle over here. Similarly, in downtown Durham, we looked at what it would take to add a second track through this Amtrak station location. Good news, we've identified what we believe are feasible scenarios to do this. They do come at a little bit of higher cost than was estimated in phase 1, again, as part of what has increased the cost in this phase of study. Another thing that has changed since the project began, this project has always been envisioned to be seeking federal funding through the Federal Transit Administration's grant programs. Since this study began, the federal government has adopted the bipartisan infrastructure law, which you all may be familiar with, maybe seeking some funding through some programs there yourselves. We have identified some opportunities potentially for elements of the project to be packaged individually to be able to compete for additional grant funding on the rail side. These are the rail grant programs. These are authorized at much higher amounts than normal. So could be an opportunity, again, if there were a phased approach to the project, to identify some other elements, double tracking or safety projects, grade separations that could compete for other pots of federal money that have a much higher federal participation than the transit dollars do. So if we do move forward, we would be able to identify options for this and put together a plan to identify some additional grant funding potentially. So our last slide here on the next steps, as Danielle mentioned, we're hoping to bring this information out to the public. We're scheduling 6 forums, 2 in Durham, 3 in Wake County, 1 in Johnston County, and 1 virtual forum over a 45-day period. Over the next month and a half or so, where folks will be able to come out, learn more about the project, ask their questions, and provide input. We'll have a survey about the options, about how to move forward, looking to get input from the public that we can share with our board and other decision makers. Another next step would be to refine that financial plan and grant strategy, ultimately to support a regional decision on whether or how to move forward with the project given this updated information. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Ms. Eggleston? I see Councilmember Rabadi.
Can everybody hear? Oh dear. Okay. Hi. I'm a little bit concerned about the phased plan because I think that construction costs rarely go down. And so my concern is that if the whole thing isn't laid out, planned, paid for at the same time, that the rest of it will never get done. And Morrisville has some of the most talented and educated workforce along that corridor, and I definitely do want to see our people be able to get around to the jobs that are coming to the area. So what do you think? What's your sense of the reality of the rest of the project getting done in phases?
Yeah, rising construction costs is definitely a concern, definitely something that we'll be looking at. We are forming a working group with Campo and other participants in the Wake Transit plan to take a look at these questions of the financial feasibility of phased implementation. So we'll have more information about that, about the affordability of if you move forward with phase 1 now, when might you be able to afford phase 2 and then kind of extend from there. That's very important information that we want to look at and are starting to get that now. One of the Kind of offsetting pieces is that the region is growing a lot. This funding source is sales tax, and the projections for the revenues will go up in the future. So although we do have the concern about rising construction costs, there may also be more affordability just because there's more revenue to work with in the future.
And what about reinvesting some of the ridership profits from Phase 1 to fund Phase 2? Is that a possibility?
That's certainly an option, yeah, that any fares collected on Phase 1 would go to offset those operations and maintenance costs that we talked about, making more money available overall to the plan.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, followed by Councilmember Fender, please.
So Catherine, you said if a decision is made this year, then you reference some dates for each of these options. Is there for a decision to be made?
We'll be working with our partners to take stock of the input that we get over this 45-day comment period and see where that stands as far as what recommendations, what insight we can gain from the input we receive from the public, from stakeholders, from groups like this, to be able to inform that decision making. So we are anticipating being able to bring the results of that feedback to Go Triangle's board and the funding partner boards, the MPO boards, the county boards, in the November timeframe, so that decision making could be as early as November, December of this year.
Okay, good, thank you. And then as far as input, I assume a letter or something from this council, if we reach some consensus, would be appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be working with Danielle and other staff partners on what the format of that would be, whether it's a letter or resolution of support for a recommendation or something like that. But absolutely, today we're just looking to bring this information, but we would be happy to come back when we're able to share again the results of some input to be able to get a formal comments from this body.
Okay, good, because I would like to do that as a council. And I'm just kind of echo some of the comments that Councilmember Robati just spoke about. You know, there's one option that obviously is far better and advantageous to the town of Morrisville than the other. And, you know, we've been waiting a long time, and you know that better than anyone, but we've been waiting a long time for this commuter rail project. And the town of Morrisville has been planning for a station. So the sooner the better, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the challenge that we do have with that option one is the fact that the cost is so much higher than what's already been planned for. So identifying that additional funding would take time as well.
Thank you for saying that's fair. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Fender, followed by Councilmember Rao, please.
Thank you for presenting this information to us tonight. I just have a couple of questions. The first one is with regards to the number of boardings by corridor, and the chart that you showed shows quite a bit of boardings in the Auburn. What is driving that? What is there?
Yeah, so that's southeast Wake County, close to the Johnston County line. So we have a lot of growth and development out in Garner today, a lot of bad traffic out there, and it's really a growing area. So in these projections for 2040, there's significantly more development out there in that portion of the corridor than there is today. So we're envisioning in this model a park and ride at that end of the line station that's near the Wake and Johnston County line. So that's really being driven by people that are driving from kind of all over that area to board at that end of line station and come in to Raleigh and Points West.
Okay, I understand that. And then your slide here with the overlay for downtown Cary, you seem to indicate that this was a challenge for this train station in that location. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in downtown Cary, I'll just scroll back to that slide quickly. So in downtown Cary, there is one track that runs through this area today. The Amtrak station is east of Harrison Avenue when Amtrak trains are serving that location. The Amtrak trains actually don't even fit between the two roadways. They block one of the crossings. So there's a kind of a challenge from a traffic and railroad operations standpoint with that. There's also a historic building just to the east of this. So when we're looking at options to add a second track through this area, it's a tight squeeze. The intersecting roadways make that complex. So we're looking at moving the Amtrak station from the east of Harrison Avenue to the west to alleviate that challenge that they see today. That lines up with the town of Cary's plans for the multimodal center and relocating that train station to the west as well.
Okay, so where is this facility with regards to what is located there now?
Yeah, so what is located there now, what you see right here is the proposed location west of Harrison. Harrison's kind of running through the trees here. Today, the Amtrak station is like right back here.
All right, and then I have two more questions. The second last question is, what is the difference between the advanced appropriations funds and the fully authorized funds? Are those two separate buckets?
Yeah, so my understanding of how this federal funding works is that some of this funding was authorized, the advance appropriations was authorized in the bipartisan infrastructure law, like when that was approved, those funds are there, and then the remainder is subject to annual budgeting process at the federal level. So there will be at least I think it's top amounts, but then potential for increases to the bottom amounts as well, authorized in the bipartisan infrastructure law.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And my last question is similar to what's been already voiced by Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Robati. Is, why Raleigh to Auburn as opposed to, why isn't there a third shorter option like downtown Raleigh to RTP? Have you guys considered that particular option?
Yeah, so we have gotten that question. The feasibility study was really identifying one option that appears to be the lowest cost, least risk option to get started. If you wanted to get started right away, what's the best place from a technical perspective to do that? There could be a wide range of other geographies that are identified as what wants to move forward as phase one, but the feasibility study is really looking at those kind of technical issues of what would be the most straightforward to move forward with first, and again, where that strongest travel demand is. So we definitely have gotten that question of what would it look like, or could you consider moving forward with the phase one from Raleigh to RTP? That's something we're happy to look at with partners, but would caution that that would come with potentially more risk, higher cost than that segment that's identified in the feasibility study.
Councilmember Rao, followed by Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, please.
Yeah, you've talked about the working on different grants and things like that. So it's really not a question, more of a comment. But I mean, the way I've looked at it, North Carolina is receiving about $2.2 billion of just projects. I think 100 projects have been identified. So I think whatever you all can do to, and I'm sure you're already doing it, but to work with Congressman Ross and Senator Tillis and Senator Burr, because I find it hard to believe that this is such a significant project. And I think that because there's been so much planning done, it's also very conducive to job creation, providing contract opportunities to small and disadvantaged businesses. I'm going to talk about that later today during my comments. But so anyway, that's just a suggestion. And I think whatever input the public would like to give in terms of just ideas and strategies. So, but thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, please.
Okay, testing, okay. Thank you for the presentation, very helpful. We have been waiting for commuter rail for a long time and the Wake Transit Plan and so forth. I'd like to echo Councilmember Fender's suggestion about option 1A or option 2. Morrisville and RTP are alongside many employers and significant economic development. And my concern with option 1, although it could be shovel-ready much faster, is that you decrease the access for individuals that will not have ready access to employment centers that might not otherwise be able to afford cars or other commuter costs. So you're lowering barriers by extending beyond Raleigh to RTP, the light rail. And I think we haven't talked enough about affordable housing or lowering barriers along rail areas. It really does help individuals participate more fully across the county. I do understand and respect the barriers you presented related to the Durham County and downtown Durham, but if we could explore extending to RTP and see what feasibility there is. The airport is also a stakeholder in that extension and possibly would be a partner in that project as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak. I'd echo that Morrisville could really benefit from it coming at least this far. It looks like RTP would be a really logical step in the other direction. Don't know if it's possible for the surveys that come out to have that as an option rather than having to have people write it in, which would make it more difficult. I'd be interested to know if Ms. Kittredge thinks that there's certain things that we could do to help influence this, telling our residents to make things happen or anything like that. I know that the technical committee from Campo is meeting early September and then the main board towards the end. What do you think would be a good opportunity for us as a council to bring that forth? As Mayor Protem mentioned, would that be the best way, or?
Well, and also too, we'll have opportunities. There will probably be lots of public engagement material that is shared with the different municipalities and stakeholders that we will, get out through the various communication channels that we have as well to share that information. But were you also interested beyond just being able to involve the public more and make them aware so they have an opportunity to comment? Were you also asking about, I guess, more of the kind of council providing feedback back as well? I just want to make sure I understood the question.
I get the impression that we would like our voice to happen for sure, and anything we can do to really engage the public would probably be really beneficial to us because we have a very engaged public. We survey them a lot, but this would be a call to action that I think would probably benefit all our towns, the whole region really.
Yes, so we'll make sure any types of materials that come out that we are sharing them through our various communications channels. Communications department is always great in helping with that. And then we will I will work with Catherine and Go Triangle on those different opportunities and whether it's a letter, a resolution of support, or if there are additional discussions you want to have to come to a consensus on which way you would like to provide input to them. So we can look at that.
That's wonderful. So did anyone's comments spur any other thoughts? Anyone want a second comment? Okay, hearing none. That was a great presentation. We appreciate all the work that's gone into this so far. This has been since 2012 that the
it's been quite some time.
Transit plan started. And our residents and businesses expect through the sales tax that was approved by the voters that we're going to have something for us. So I think that's our goal. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to recognize our Deputy Town Clerk, Erin Hudson, who will present any public comments received. Okay, did anyone sign up at the door today? Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak for 3 minutes on any topic of their choosing in public address? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. At this point, we're running a little bit early. I'm going to go through the citizen involvement opportunities, and then I think we can get through council comments as well before our 7:15 break. There is a lot going on in Morrisville, no surprise. The Western Wake Farmers Market offers healthy and fresh food, goods, and live music for small and local businesses from 8 a.m. to 12 noon during their summer hours every Saturday. And we are back at Church Street Park for the second annual Minor League Cricket Finals weekend. If you love cricket or new experiences as much as we do, then join us for a free, fun-filled weekend in Morrisville on August 27th through 28th. The Pacific Conference Final, which is the Silicon Valley Strikers versus the Seattle Thunderbolts, will be Saturday, August 27th at 1 p.m. The Atlantic Conference Final will be New Jersey Stallions versus Atlanta Fire, Saturday the 27th at 5:30 p.m. And then the National Championship Final will be Sunday the 28th at 5 p.m. Under the lights, it's really stunning. Just for information, there will be no on-site parking at Church Street for the tournament weekend. Parking will be available with frequent shuttle service from both Cedar Fork Community Center at 1050 Town Hall Drive and Iron Mountain, located at 826 Church Street. Moving on, the Fall White Goods Collection Day will be Thursday, September 8th. Registration is required in advance and must be received by Monday, September 5th at 5 p.m. Learn more and register at MSV White Goods on our website. Revolution, the band, will play at the Final Music in the Park event at the Healthy Food Hub on September 9th from 6:30 p.m. till 8 p.m. This five-piece band is known for its amazing harmonies, and they sing the entire Beatles catalog from 1962 to 1970. You're invited to sing along and dance to the music at this free concert. The Doherty's Paddy Wagon, good Irish food truck will be available for refreshment. And there's two save the dates on our horizon for later in September. The town of Morrisville will have an international festival on September 24th from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. It will take place on Town Hall Drive. We are accepting applications for organizations to join the festival in two categories: cultural organizations that would like to have a tent at the event to share information about your culture. Ideally, you would be able to provide some sort of hands-on educational activity for attendees and or be able to display educational information about your culture. And the second category was artisans who would like to sell their arts, crafts, clothing, etc., representative of a specific culture. Thanks to Leslie Haney and the entire Parks and Rec staff for creating these opportunities for our residents to celebrate our diversity together. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources will be hosting a Movies in the Park at Morrisville Community Park, 1520 Morrisville Parkway, on September 30th at 8 p.m. The movie will be English Vinglish. The showing is free, and attendees are encouraged to bring their own chairs or blankets on the lawn, and there will be dinner or snacks. Trader Joe's will be on-site sampling snacks and beverages. As always, for a full listing of our events, please see the town calendar at www.townofmorrisville.org. At this point, we're at council and manager comments. I'd like to first recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, followed by Councilmember Garamella.
Thank you. So first, I want to echo my congratulations to our Public Works Department on their Re-Accreditation and their presentation tonight. It's not an easy task, and I'm going to repeat what we heard tonight, that our Public Works Department is one of 176 in the whole of North America to receive this accreditation. And I don't know how many cities and towns there are in America, but that is pretty significant. And I know in North Carolina, we heard that our Public Works Department is one of 3. And I know in North Carolina, we have just over 540 cities and towns of various sizes. So for the town of Morrisville, this is significant, and I really do congratulate each and every one of you in the department. I've watched this department grow over these 23 years, and I'm incredibly proud of where you all are today, so thank you. I also want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters that had an Equality Day recently, a Women's Equality Day, recognizing women elected officials here in Wake County. I was able to attend, and their theme this year was, and I brought my little display with me here, their theme this year was Power of Pearls and the Women Who Wear Them. And so I am wearing my pearls that I received when I went to the event, and I thank them very much. This is an event they have every year, and it really is a wonderful event. Not only do we get to see each other across Wake County, all our local elected officials, county, state, and even federal elected officials are recognized, and it's really nice to be able to socialize with the other women in the county. And then, of course, it's always a pleasure to be recognized. So I thank the Wake County League of Women Voters for that. And then I'm going to end on a sad note. As those of you who were listening 2 weeks ago when we met, I talked about the loss of Wayne County Deputy Sergeant Fishman, and he gave his ultimate sacrifice to the community. And unfortunately, need to recognize tonight that we've lost a Wake County deputy. Wake County Deputy Ned Bird also gave the ultimate sacrifice, and I want to say his name, and I want to make sure that we never become numb to these situations that unfortunately are occurring way too frequently. So to the Wake County Sheriff's Department, I want to say I wish you all peace and comfort in the days ahead, and to our own police department, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Councilmember Garamella, followed by Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
Yeah, I want to echo same what Liz said regarding public works accreditation. I think we don't thank enough, but you guys keep the lights and everything rolling. Thank you for everything that you do. On a different note, I think Martha, I'll get with you. I got a confirmation of the new interim CEO for Cricket USA, along with 3 of their board of directors are flying in on September 9th. They'll be there for a day, and so if, looking for opportunities, if the staff and the council would be interested to meet them. So I'll send you more information with their schedules, and because they sent me last night their confirmation of coming into the area and talking to the staff.
Great. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, followed by myself.
Well, I too would like to say that I'm so proud of our Public Works Department. It is not easy, and we have a fresh start with our newest director, who's also going to be serving the region. So we have a star already. Thank you so much. It's so incredible to be part of Morrisville. We have national accreditation for Public Works, Fire, and Police. So we are really an amazing place to be. So I'm very proud of this town and the work of our staff and our public for making it such a great city. I would also like to say I am so excited to be at the Morrisville Senior Center tonight. It is a special place. We haven't had it for very long, but wow, we've really leaped up to the challenge of holding a town council meeting here in a temporary way. But I want to come back here more now that I see the friendly decorations and how flexible the space can be used. So I'm very proud of the Senior Center and where it is today. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rabati will be after me. Congratulations to Public Works, doing a great job. Our entire staff is world-class. Many are accredited. I'd like to say a few happy days for lots. Happy Independence Day for India, that was last week. Happy Senior Citizens Day, which was past Sunday. Happy Tej Festival to our Nepali community, which happens next week. And I am looking forward to some world-class cricket this weekend. I hope we have great weather, and a lot of people join us at Church Street Park to learn about this exciting sport. Councilmember Rabati, followed by Councilmember Fender.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to extend a welcome to Jeffrey or Jeff Brown? Okay, well, welcome. You have some big shoes to fill, as you heard tonight, and I'm so proud of Giselle and our Public Works Department. To be among less than 200 towns in the whole country that are accredited is amazing and is indicative of the high quality and standards that we extend to our staff. So I could not be more pleased. I also wanted to echo Mayor Pro Tem's comments about Officer Ned Bird. It's such a tragedy when a law enforcement officer, when a firefighter makes the ultimate sacrifice. You know, I know that that people sign up for those jobs with that possibility always, but you know, nobody should have to die at work, and I just am keeping his family in prayer. Thank you.
Councilmember Fender, followed by Councilmember Rao, please.
I don't have any comments.
Councilmember Rao, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I pray for the family of Sheriff Byrd, and happy Women's Equality Day to everybody. Just to save the date, on September 22nd, I'm working with Councilmember Garamella and other leaders of the community to invite Michael Langworth, our RDU CEO, airport CEO, to talk about more direct international flight service, looking at the India market with our growing community. So it should be an interesting meeting. He's just going to talk about the different criteria to recruit new air service to our airport. Second thing, the North Carolina Veterans Business Meeting was a real success. I wanted to say that the highlight was Alan Thomas, SBA Director, who really highlighted the great opportunities that exist for small and disadvantaged businesses and veterans businesses for the $2.2 billion of funding that's coming in from the infrastructure plan. And so he encouraged everyone to just work with the small business office here for the North Carolina district to make sure that we are leveling the playing field for businesses. So it's a really great opportunity to look at your certifications. Hopefully our council and our staff can work with our chamber to make sure that we can educate the business community about these opportunities. He does plan to come back to the area, so we'll try to host a visit. I want to thank the North Carolina Secretary of Technology, James Weaver, for visiting Cary last week at the IT Serve Alliance meeting, and the Digital Summit in North Carolina was a real success, so I'll be sharing notes on that. Happy Indian Independence Day. And the final two things, I want to congratulate Chair Sig Hutchison, who last week received the County Commissioner of the Year by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. He's worked very closely with our council, with our staff on many things, and I think it's a great accolades for him and his service, especially as he's leaving elective office this year. Finally, yesterday, I'm running less because I'm having knee problems, but I love to run through Morrisville to look at all the different things that we've completed. And I had the opportunity of running through the Stottlemyre property. I'm actually blanking out on what the name of the new development is. And it brought back, I just couldn't believe it's been 6 years since we did the conditional rezoning. And it's amazing that landscaping, that they did save more trees than I thought they did. And the donation of the right-of-way, the $1.2 million of dedication for the Civil Memorial Park and the trails and the signage which is going to be coming. It just made me realize that sometimes when we make decisions, we don't realize the impact that it's going to have. And it's now that the Morrisville Carpenter Road project will be completed, it's going to make it really look nice. So I just want to welcome anyone that's to Morrisville that's going to live there, and wish you all the best as you come to Morrisville. So thank you.
Thank you. Town Manager Page, any comments from staff?
Yes, sir, thank you. I'd just like to give credit and thanks to staff that have made this meeting possible. A lot of work behind the scenes. Will, Maria's running our stream tonight. Rick and Kelly with IT are here. Aaron and Brandon really put a lot of effort into this night, and we appreciate our support team being here for this, so thank you very much.
And I think we would all like to echo that as well. We really appreciate the opportunity to try something new, and this is going really smoothly, and that's not by accident. That's a lot of hard work. So we thank you all very much. At this time, we're going to go ahead and take a 15-minute break. So why don't we go ahead and reconvene at 7:25, please. Okay, it's 7:25, we're coming back into session. We have one work session tonight regarding the Morrisville Veterans Memorial Site Plan Project. Jerry Allen, Community Services Supervisor, will facilitate the work session. Mr. Allen.
Good evening, everyone. During our last budget year, Town Council brought up the subject of the Veterans Memorial that had been worked on or has been planned in Morrisville now for a few years. And Council agreed to, at that time, fund the site plan development project so that we could, get our ideas on paper and have a site plan that we could use in our fundraising and moving that project forward. As you know, we have a nonprofit organization, the Morrisville Veterans Foundation, or Veterans Memorial Foundation, that have been working on the project. And so they have been working with us and our contractor, Stewart Incorporated, who we contracted with earlier this year. They've been working with us to get that project started. And Emily Blackwell with Stewart is our project manager, and she's here tonight to give you an update and also get your input on the project that they're working on. So, Emily?
All right. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am excited to talk to you guys about your future Veterans Memorial. I do want to first off thank you so much for selecting the Stewart team for this project. We have done a handful of memorials across the state and are really excited to kind of bring that expertise, experience to Morrisville and work with you guys through this process. And so our, let's see, how do we do this? Just scroll. Okay, so like Jerry said, my name is Emily Blackwell. I am the project manager. I'm a landscape architect. I'm also our market lead for community spaces at Stewart, which is basically all of our Parks and Rec work. So kind of a fancy name, so for whatever reason, whoever came up with that. And then also on our team is our architecture partners with Stitch Design Shop. They are a very innovative group, and they like to say that they do parkitecture. So we are really excited to have them on our team. I actually met with them today, starting some little sketching earlier today at their office on this project, as well as Harris Cost. They are our cost estimating partners who will, as we go through the different schemes and get to some concepts and ideas, that you guys will also have the financial information for what these proposed options will cost. So that'll be a really important piece of your decision making, as always. So I do want to say that we are really excited to be here. In light of all the conversation tonight about your accreditations, we're excited to work with your Parks and Rec department because they are also accredited. There's 188 accredited Parks and Rec departments across the U.S. through the National Parks and Recreation Association, and only 14 in North Carolina. I think the time you guys were accredited, you were only like the 5th. So another exciting accreditation that is also quite rare for your town. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys. Am I doing this the best way? Is there like a way to make it bigger? This is good? Okay, just don't want to miss out on anything. Okay. Wanted to review with you guys kind of where we're at on the project. So we've got it broken down into, I think, 3 stages. The first was kind of due diligence and analysis, where we met on site, walked through the property with your staff as well as our design team, and just kind of got familiar with all the things that are going to encompass this project. And then we've kind of started into our schematic design, which the first part of that is this is kind of the last piece of the first half of that, which is getting all of the input from your town. So we met with the Veterans Memorial Foundation. We met with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee. And then we also had a public meeting, a booth at Morrisville just a couple of weeks ago, and had a great time. We saw Councilwoman Johnson there, as well as Councilman Rao. I may have, if I missed somebody else that was there, I might not have gotten introduced to you directly, but we had a great time there. And then that leads us to the meeting tonight. So after we get I'm going to go through on this presentation the input we've gotten so far, and I also want to get some input from you all on what your thoughts are on the memorial. And then we're going to take all of that and start working on 3 different design options that will also include cost estimates. And probably about end of September, early October, we'll be coming back to the previously mentioned boards to get their kind of feedback and start honing that into a final plan. So that will be kind of our stage 3. So mid-October to mid-December will be kind of getting all that feedback, as well as refining that into a final plan with final cost estimate and a 3D rendering, because we all know that the pretty pictures are what sell the plan, and you definitely are going to need that in order to raise the funding. I know the foundation is already working on some strategic partnerships, so we got a few of those in the works, and then Bob's got some fun updates on that just this week. And then just to go through future stages that are not in this contract, but will be kind of your next stages, is that funding phase where we probably aren't as involved during that time. That'll be kind of on you guys, the foundation, and any funding partners. We're happy to help you through any grants or any of those things if needed. But then after funding is complete, we would be working on the detailed drawings, the construction documents, all the things that you need to actually build this, as well as permitting, and then bidding and contracting, and then of course the actual construction. I should have added on there, and then ribbon cutting, which is the fun part everybody wants to get to. And all of those future stages are going to kind of depend on how long each, the funding takes, and then exactly what the final plan looks like as to how long the detailed drawings take, or the permitting, and all of those processes. All right, so just a reminder, I know you all are familiar with the site location, but just to remind those who might be listening in or watching today and are not familiar, it is across the street from Town Hall at 101 Town Hall Drive at the trailhead there. So this is right off Morrisville Carpenter Road, and I do have an exhibit here just in case we want to point to anything throughout the conversation tonight. All right, so here's a few images of the site. There is a stormwater pond there that this site is kind of located between the parking lot, the shelter, the roadway, and the pond. So this is kind of some views across that area, and then of the pond itself, which is actually for a stormwater pond. You guys, I will commend you on your stormwater pond. It's quite a pretty space, and commend your maintenance and public works teams for keeping it looking that way. So I want to go through the input we've gotten so far. So we met with the Morrisville Veterans Foundation on July 20th, and I've asked them some of the same questions I'm going to ask you guys in a few minutes. And some of the key words that they wanted this memorial to embody was honor, quiet, respectful, warm, and inviting. They want to make sure that it honors all who served, not those who served in X war or this conflict, or just the ones that are serving now, but anyone who has served. There's also been conversations that to make sure that is not excluding those who have lived other places while they served. And it's not. We understand that Morrisville is a place where most of your residents grew up somewhere else and have moved here, and they're coming with experiences and connections to military that may not be tied to Morrisville or their time in Morrisville, but they're bringing that experience and that life connection with them as they move here. So we want to make sure. So that was one of the things that the Veterans Foundation wanted to talk about, is that they want to honor all who served, no matter where they were and where they come from. Accessibility was important, and they also wanted to make sure that they limit the flags. There were some examples of veterans memorials that I showed that had a number of flags, and they just wanted to kind of have that one American flag and kind of simplify that look, instead of having trying to decide what all those flags would be. And they also wanted to provide shade. They expressed concern. They had all visited memorials where they were out there at a Memorial Day event and they're just burning up and sweating and there's scorching in the sun, and wanted to emphasize that there be some shade in this memorial. So the following week, July 27th, we met with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee. Some of the key words that they wanted to highlight were honoring, relaxing, reflective, and welcoming. You see a little theme starting to develop, a little overlap of words there from the foundation. And they wanted a place that people will actually go to, not something that you just drive by. We've all seen the memorial on the side of the road, or even there's some nearby towns that have memorials that you drive by, you see it, but when have you stopped and pulled over and actually visited it? So they wanted to emphasize that it's a place that you actually want to go, want to spend time in, and want to walk through and experience on a personal level. They mentioned gardens or a pastoral setting being a potential type of memorial, and wanting it to be kind of a lush space. That was something that they were interested in. There was also discussion at both of these meetings about what branches of service should be included. And I know we had a discussion at the Veterans Foundation meeting about whether or not the National Guard should be honored separate of the other 5 branches. And then there was also a discussion at the Parks Commission, or Parks Advisory Committee, about whether to include Space Force as it is identified by the Department of Defense as a branch of the military. So none of those have been decided on, so that might be something we want to touch on in our discussion tonight as well. They also emphasized accessibility and shade, so that came up in that meeting as well. So leading from that into our Morrisville, I don't know if I can make this a little bigger. We had a very fun group. We got there early and we're trying to set up, and we got there a little too early and we were the only people trying to set up a booth, and there was no one there. And in about 30 minutes, booths were set up, s'mores were being made, and here came, 300 people out to that event. So if you haven't been, it was a fun evening of good chocolatey, mushy goodness and just fun out there with music and entertainment. So, but we had a booth set up, and these are some images from there where we engaged the public in a few activities, and I'll walk you through the results of that. So we had everybody scan a QR code as they came into our booth and fill out a survey as a means of our sign-in for the evening. We had 30 people fill that out. Based on some of our other engagement, it was more like 50 people. So I think some people got distracted by our other activities and didn't fill out our QR code, but they did give the rest of their input. This QR code was really just to get their name, email, if they want to get some information in the future, and know where their zip code is. The reason we ask about zip code is due to some of the grant applications that you may want to apply for. Do want to make sure that you've gotten input from the residents throughout your town, and want to make sure that you're getting input from your citizens and not just having an event or posting something online and getting input from whoever has access to it on Facebook or social media or something like that. So this is kind of some of that data to help sell those grant funders in the future. So most of them did come from the 27560 zip code. So the first activity that people were asked to engage in was, what do you want to see in the Morrisville Veterans Memorial Master Plan? So you could fill out a sticky note or just write something on the board, or fill out a comment card. There's kind of a couple different ways if you wanted to be really public about your response or have some private things. There was a lot of similar input here as to what was in our meeting. So flags, seating, shade, Memorial Day events. We also had some input where we wanted to, somebody was asking about making sure to honor those who have moved here that may have served in military in other countries before moving here. So this was a pretty fun engagement here, so a little bit of free-form input. The next activity was they were given 4 tickets and 8 different items to put their tickets into the corresponding mason jar. So those elements were shade, public art, interactive displays, and a fountain, as well as a gathering space, garden, interaction with the pond, or a symbolic monument. So these images that you're seeing were printed out and taped to the tables in our booth, and there was a corresponding mason jar next to those, and they were given 4 tickets to basically vote on what their favorite elements or the elements that they would like to see incorporated into the memorial. So these 8 are ones that kind of came out of some of those discussions and ones that are frequently included in memorials, so that we could kind of start to prioritize what would be included in our future concept designs. So the respondents overwhelmingly liked the fountain. I know some of the staff and folks were like, of course they wanted the most expensive item. Well, you know, everybody likes the fountain, everybody likes the interaction with the water, so I think that is indicative of this. I do believe that some of the early concepts when the foundation was being formed included a fountain or had some language about the potential of a fountain, so I'm not sure if that had any influence or not, but that was kind of our leading answer. The next being shade. We did include that since we had heard it so many times in our previous meetings, and it showed up as that as well as a symbolic monument. We kind of tied for second place. Following that was garden and pond and an interactive display, as well as, and then gathering space and public art were kind of at the bottom. I think there might have been probably some assumption that this will be used as a gathering place for events and things, so I think that may be why that fell towards the bottom, that people assume that's gonna happen anyway, and so they didn't spend their ticket, spend their park bucks that way. And then public art was interesting, was last as well. We usually would expect to see that a little higher, but the symbolic monument, which had these images here, which are kind of sculptural, was towards the top. So I think there may have been a little bit of conflict in people between it being more of just a sculpture versus the symbolic monument piece. So, and if you actually combine those 2 numbers, it's up there with the fountain. So something that has a sculptural memorial component, I think is definitely an interest in your community. So all of that, I might want to give a pause, see if you have any questions on what we've heard so far before, because the next thing is going to be questions to you.
I think we're ready to keep going.
All right, cool. So, and then thankfully this is being recorded, so I don't have to take notes right now, so don't think because I'm not taking notes, I'm not going to go back and watch this video and get it all down. So, I'm going to ask you some of the questions that we asked in our meetings. So I want to know, what does success look like from your perspective for the Morrisville Veterans Memorial? And some of that could be some words that you want it to describe, or words you want it to not be described. You know, what do you not want? Sometimes that's just as important as what you do want.
Okay, I'll recognize Councilmember Rabati. I'll try to keep us in order.
The veterans to be proud of it. Oh, thank you. Look at you. I want the veterans to be proud of it. I want veterans to want to go there, to feel that the space is indicative of the respect that we have for them. And I want it to be, I don't want it to be flashy. I want it to be a respectful tribute to veterans.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rao, please. I'll do it as we do the things. I've got Councilmember Rao, then Councilmember Fender, then Mayor Pro Tem.
I think success for me, as Councilmember Body said, is something that the veterans are proud of. I think a place where our community feels comfortable coming and gathering, not just on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, but during the course of the year. And I think a reminder, particularly to our children and grandchildren, of the different wars. I mean, if there could be like history, placards of the different wars that were fought, and just, kind of remembering, what, Americans, veterans have done to serve their country. I mean, I think that would be perfect. And in terms of describing the memorial, just dedicated service, heroes of our nation. Don't know what I don't want to describe the memorial, but I think just anything that can invoke pride and the greatest service to our country. So thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Fender, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I guess first and foremost, I would want our veterans to be proud of the memorial. And I think, there are a number of individuals that have been promoting the idea of a veterans memorial for a long time. So I want them ultimately to be very proud and pleased with the end results. For me, my thoughts are that I would want it to be respectful and also invoke a sense of peace when people are there. And I guess what I would not want it to be is something tacky. I would hope it would end up being very elegant, something that we could be proud of. I think the location in of itself lends itself to, it's already going to be a gathering space, so it'll fit in well with that. And having the stormwater pond, and I think this memorial will complement that space. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, followed by Councilmember Garamella, please.
So I'm in agreement with everything that's been said so far, so I'll try to, I'm going to repeat some of the same words, but inviting, welcoming, a place that kind of draws you in, where you can be respectful and reflective. Those are all the words I think of when I think of this memorial site. And then what I wouldn't want it to be is out of scale or busy or complex or just ornate. It needs to be more kind of dignified. And are you gonna ask us a little bit more about how many branches of government?
Yes.
Okay, because I have an opinion on that too, but I'll save that then when we're ready for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Garamella, followed by myself.
Thanks for the presentation. It's pretty good. For me, obviously, it's about respect, and also I want, when someone goes there, especially the kids, it should kindle a sense of I want to serve too, because the reason I say with Morrisville's population is 47% Asian, you need to basically remind them that the liberty didn't come free, and that is something would be good if there is some verbiage and some kind of a thing that they could read. That would be really helpful for the immigrant community to see, the sacrifices that was done and how they could be the next person to be in any of the, join the forces or something like that. And also I wanted to see if we could complement with the stormwater, because I like the concept of the fountain. If we could use that area to use the fountain, and then, that kind of complements it. Might be that changes colors, during July 4th, red, blue, white, that could continuously, during Christmas time. That's basically, we have been craving for some kind of water feature, but, and I think I'm happy that it kind of resembles, but that basically will go year round, and with the color changes, will really reflect good.
Very cool. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I too agree with pretty much everything I've heard. I really like the idea of having some words there, like liberty is not free, as was mentioned. I think that would be very great. Some of the words I wrote down when we were going over it would be honor, service, open, and inviting. Are you asking about the shade later?
You can talk about shade now.
Okay.
I don't think I've got a specific question later.
Okay,
so.
just, I'd like to just share my thoughts about shade, that we're not going to be able to shade enough to make it really matter, in my opinion. I think it would keep it from being open. We have a shelter right next to it, so that's my thought when we talk about meeting the parking needs. We're never going to meet all the parking needs, so we sort of just go with what we've got. But I would like a place to sit, like one bench or two benches, I think would be really nice. I want this to be a place to visit and actively. And I don't know if we need a whole fountain, but I think the sound of water trickling is peaceful. So I think there's a way to do that in a very sedate manner without necessarily having a whole fountain. But this is the beginning of the process, so I just wanted to share that. I think the sound of water, I think, is really peaceful. And we want the veterans to be happy, and we're very glad that there's so many early in the process giving input. So we want to continue to reach out, I think, would be important for that.
Okay.
I'd like to recognize Councilmember Scarlett Johnson, please.
So are you going to be asking, thank you. So are you going to be asking us for specific design preferences, or is this my opportunity to express those now?
Can't remember all the questions. Might be a good segue to the next.
Okay.
To the next slide. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I am consistent with the other council members. I'd like this memorial to be peaceful. I like the inclusion of some sort of water feature. It doesn't necessarily have to be a water fountain. It can just be water running along over a granite fixture or something, something so that you can see it or hear it. Benches are definitely something that I would include in the design. I would like the design to be understated but distinctly Morrisville. We know Cary has an area where there's very tall monuments, but it doesn't say Cary that much. I mean, what is Morrisville? It's something that has to be tucked near our park system and so forth. I'd like to see more green without being too high maintenance, but I really think making it too hardscape makes it a little sterile. So it's a balance between too much hardscape and also being respectful, because I think some of the hardscape is very peaceful, but it is North Carolina and it's very hot. So I would like to see some shade. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I like your use of sterile. That one came up in both of the committee meetings of, we don't want a sterile site, we want it to be welcoming. So that's where some of those warm words came from. So it's great.
So everyone had a chance at that round. Councilmember Garamella, do you have something else to add? I really like you're talking about the green. Butterfly garden might be a nice small thing to activate it as well. Take us through the next part.
Yeah, so you guys touched on some of this, but those of you who didn't get a chance, I do want to talk about activities. So we kind of talked on that with the shade and the fountain and things like that, but if there's anything else you guys want to be able to do, I mean, I know one thing that as we're starting to look at the design that we're kind of trying to figure out how to do is the gathering piece and how many people would actually gather in that space versus like, for maybe a small ceremony versus maybe Memorial Day ends up being a bigger thing, and we might have to talk about logistically how that happens. Do you limit the parking lot and have people park across the street or town hall and come across for an event, for a larger event, and it spill into the lawn area over here? So just trying to, sorry, I'll stay on the mic. Just trying to think about what could happen there, how does it work? So we're starting to get into the weeds of some of that, but also wanted to hear if there's any other, if you had any more opinions on some of the elements that we included, or, and then also I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak on the branches of service. I don't think anybody's gonna have any issue with Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force. I think in the past, I've had a little bit of conversation about Coast Guard. Typically, it has been included. And other ones, National Guard was also recognized as its own, but I know that's something that has been under discussion here, as well as the new Space Force. So I want to give you an opportunity to kind of speak on both of those. They're kind of tied together because the activities, one of the activities is honoring the branches. So one of the kind of elements or things to do are pieces of the puzzle, as you will.
Okay. I saw Councilmember Rabati, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
So I'm not an expert on how the military works, but isn't the National Guard deployed subject to the service that they're deployed to help? Like they're deployed in service of the Army, they're deployed in service of the Navy. So I'm not sure about the National Guard. I guess I would defer to, honestly, Bob Butler, Bill Dukowitz, the people that have been working on the memorial forever probably should make that decision. Is Space Force a thing?
It is a recognized branch of service through the Department of Defense. So, unfortunately, the TV show probably came before everybody really knew that. So it is, I've gotten that question a few times.
I mean, I'm kind of reluctant to stick Space Force on a monument that's going to be there
And
forever.
that's been kind of the conversation with, I think it really came up during the Parks Advisory Committee, and they, about half of them are wanting to defer to the fact that the Department of Defense is recognizing it's a branch that is seemingly going to be here. People will serve in it, even if you don't know anybody now. And I'm just looking to this as whether you want to include it because you may have veterans from that division in the future, but also recognizing that it's really kind of an unknown branch at this time, and this is when you're making the decision. So, you want to speak to that?
Well, just to expand slightly on what she was talking about the Space Force, she hit the subject pretty well from how our discussion went, and that was, it's really new. People are just getting into it. There's not a veteran of the Space Force necessarily yet that would be recognized. So even though that it's more of a future thing than it is a current thing. I just wanted to give a little bit of insight into the National Guard question so that as everyone else was talking about it, if you also have that question. The feedback from the foundation is primarily that the National Guard, when activated into wartime, is typically activated either under the Army or the Air Force. There's basically two branches, National Guard that serves. What makes the National Guard different is at times when we're not at war, they're still in service, but at a state level. You see National Guard called out to natural disasters very commonly, things of that nature that the military necessarily wouldn't go and do. So, the National Guard is kind of a dual service. It's a state level service unless activated for wartime. So, if that helps. But when activated for war, they fall under either the Army or the Air Force.
Okay, I personally would 100% defer to what the committee wants on the question of the National Guard. I have some reluctance around Space Force. If everybody else wants it, I suppose it's in. Meaning no disrespect, by the way, to anyone that's serving in Space Force.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
Thank you. I echo the concerns about Space Force. Maybe we could design something so that other areas of service could be added at a later time. I do think that we should include Coast Guard. That is a national service. We have coastal communities along North Carolina for sure. And again, going back to your original point, not everybody started out in Morrisville and might be a veteran of a line of service, and Coast Guard is certainly one of the domestic ones that we have in the United States. The National Guard item, I would also defer that. I think that National Guard members do serve in times of natural or disasters, and we have to call upon their service to help support local governments. But depends on the design and what the committee wants to do as to whether or not we include that specifically at this time. And the type of activities do you want the memorial to support? I think events that we would have throughout the year, and also, we could have speakers come and offer insights and different things. It'd be very interesting to hear from our local veterans. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I actually forgot that question about the types of activities that I would like to see it be someplace that could support a small, dignified, solemn gathering on 9/11, on Memorial Day, on Veterans Day. I don't think it has to support like Memorial Day festivities that we would do in the town. I would see it more as the place where we go to actually remember the significance of Memorial Day, for example.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, please, followed by myself.
So again, I'm going to echo, I agree with everything that's been said so far. As far as who is recognized in this specific memorial site we're talking about, I would stick to the 5 branches, the Marines, the Army, the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the Air Force. And I was at the Veterans Memorial meeting last week when they talked about this again, and they all as a group reiterated again that they want to leave it to the 5 branches. So I would, deferring to them as well, and would agree with that. I just want to add a couple of things I didn't add in my last comments when we talk about what we want to see there. I do want to see shading. I was hoping that the trees that are there in time will help provide some shade, and maybe we plant more trees. I was hoping we would have natural shading versus some kind of, because in some of the examples you had, Emily, you showed like shade structures, like sails and that. I would hope we would do more natural kind of shading. And a walk of honor with the bricks. I know the Memorial Foundation is looking to do some fundraising with bricks. So if we could have that walk of honor with the bricks, or whatever we want to call it. Benches, yes, and even lighting. Some of the memorials I've been to, the lighting comes from the ground up, and I think that's really effective at night. And you've seen more of these than I have, I'm sure. So I would do some kind of lighting to that effect. And as far as events, we're really good about closing off parking lots and streets to have events. So if we need to have a really big event there, we can have it. But what you've heard, like from Councilmember Abadi, about that it should be able to hold small kind of Veterans Day events. And if we get large crowds, we'll know how to handle. Our staff is really good at that. So I think this idea that it be a really tasteful and reflective and very respectful site is really important for me anyhow. And I think I've heard that from others as well. So that's all I have right now.
Okay. I'd like to echo the 5 branches. I really like the lighting that Mayor Pro Tem was just talking about, because I hadn't really thought about that, but that makes it it can really make a very impactful place to be and very serene. Walk of Honor I like. So we do our tree lighting in that same space, and the tree's right on the other side of the parking lot. So I think that staff has created that in such a way that it can be really flexible, and it could be any size that we want. Our recent Veterans Memorial was kind of facing the parking lot, so I guess getting into the weeds, I think it'd be important to face the parking lot, so we could make it a bigger thing if we wanted to, and if it's set back far enough, it could still be smallish and serene away from the sidewalk. So I'd love to be able to be big or small, depending. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I imagine it's probably going to be an arc, but I don't know. That's way down the road. But generally facing the larger space, I think, would be good.
Right, having that flexibility of
flexibility
size,
to be
yeah,
really small or
sure.
larger would be my thought on that. I like everything that I've heard. I think this is really taking shape. Looking to see if anyone else has anything they'd like to add at this time. Okay. Councilmember Rabadi, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Take us further.
So, okay, so since you got that, I wanted to show you a couple, I'd shown the previous, in the previous meetings, a handful of examples of work that memorials we have done in other towns, and I've got two I'm gonna show you just to kind of get your thoughts, see what you like, what you don't like, because there was ones that I showed that I'm not showing tonight because they were so disliked, but, you know, so, which is great. We want to hear that too, and no disrespect.
Can you show us one of those for fun?
I can tell you one. I'll let Jerry tell you after the meeting so we don't go on camera talking about another town. So that was really helpful to hear what you all are interested in. The previous meetings, it's been great to hear everyone's input. And so I think these examples have been helpful to just kind of show you some of the things that are out there, some things we've worked on. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Okay. And we can zoom in as needed. So this is, it's actually called Veterans Park now, in Harrisburg, North Carolina. It's northeast of Charlotte in Cabarrus County. This is their Veterans Memorial. It's a 1 acre square, kind of an out parcel of a greater shopping center development that donated this property, and it's right at a major intersection of the town. Their town hall is across Highway 49, so a much larger road than yours is across. So they did have to think, you know, like as you guys, they had to think about your kind of your drive-by experience, being able to see it. They also put their town Christmas tree in the middle of the space, as well as the pedestrian experience. So a little different traffic scenario than yours, thankfully. We had to kind of figure out how people could see this going 50 miles an hour. Also just they had a little bit more space, but I think one of the focuses of their experience was an educational component. And I would say from the input we've gotten from the committees, and it sounds like you guys are interested in a little bit of history, but maybe not reissuing the history book on site. They were maybe a little more heavy-handed on the history component, and it sounds like you guys are wanting to be. The coping around the pool, the pool of the fountain here has a full timeline of conflicts and wars that America has been involved in and room to add, from the beginning to the current era, as well as room to add future ones if they occur. This was maybe one of the slides that I think the Veterans Committee said that they didn't want a lot of flags. They wanted one American flag to kind of stand out. So I think that came up when we were looking at this particular memorial, seeing all the flags and how kind of diluted a little bit of the emphasis of the American flag was a little bit of their feedback. But it is one of the ways to honor the different branches with a flag versus a plaque. I think they did like some of the shade structure, and these benches here are swings. So that was a component I think the Parks Committee really liked. Trying to show you guys all these things. One thing that the Veterans Committee did not like was the Purple Heart memorial piece here, because they really wanted that to be more sacred and not be shown so directly on the memorial. So, you know, that was probably a difference between, why that pops up every time I set the mouse down. Difference between this town of Harrisburg versus here is they were wanting to kind of educate you as much as they could while you're on this 1 acre piece of property. So I think, but I think there's, you know, components here that are really nice. One thing I wanted to point out here is what they called I can't remember what they called the collection now, but these displays are replicas of the Declaration of Independence, the preamble to the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And so they are scaled replicas of those 3 documents, so you can go and read them in the script that they were written in. And so it was a great opportunity for folks to see those documents if you can't get to Library of Congress in DC and see the originals, which I know has, the last couple of years has been a limited experience anyway. So just different things like that that they were able to incorporate here that are things to kind of consider. I would say before I asked for your feedback, one other thing that the Veterans Committee did not love was the emblems for the branches were these huge, like 4-foot medallions that were placed in the pavement around the fountain, and very colorful and beautiful pieces. But the committee did not want, or the foundation, I keep saying the wrong word. The foundation did not want to put those in the ground. They didn't want it to be something that you walk on. They want to make sure those are vertical pieces. So that was a really good piece of feedback from that group. Is there anything you guys want to, any thoughts or things you want to talk about with this, or can't? Don't
I
have
see
to.
Councilmember Rabati, followed by Councilmember Fender.
I just want to offer a cautionary tale about that big water pool there, which is that I lived in a town before I came here that had almost exactly that structure, and I will tell you that kids used it as a public pool all year long, and I would really like to avoid something like that. I love the idea of a water feature. I want there to be the sound of running water, but I would really strongly advise against something like that.
Yeah. Good feedback.
Councilmember Fender, please, followed by Councilmember Garamella.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a water feature. However, I take note of what Councilmember Rabati was just saying. This design looks like there's too much going on. It's not elegant at all. I really don't, and particularly, I don't like that, the picture that you have there zoomed in on, the rifle and the hat and the boot, and then it looks like the side of the pool thing. Are those supposed to be bullets? What's going on there? Up at the, maybe not, maybe,
Yeah, I think it's
you
just
know, right above the
yeah.
hat? Oh,
I see what you mean.
Either way. I don't think
that
it's supposed to be bullets.
texture?
Yeah.
The shell casings.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's just too much going on in that design, like with the Purple Heart there, and I think like what many of us have said previously is something very simple and elegant, and so something not like that.
So I need to hear that too. Thank you.
Councilmember Garamella, followed by myself, please.
I do agree, like, we should not have those logos on the floor, but some kind of a hologram in the water that, basically no one can touch, but at least when you walk through it, or illuminated inside the water, that would be really good. I do understand people taking a dip, but I think we can put measures that it's not a swimming pool for people to take a dip. But I think the water feature will really attract people, and then it's obviously recognizing veterans, but also from my point of view is like encouraging the generation, the younger generation, that, get into the armed services.
I'd like to share, I'm not a big fan of the rifle showing and things like that. I want this, I envision more of a monument to peace and service rather than war. So it's kind of two sides of the same thing. A little philosophically is, I don't necessarily think that it needs to be a veterans memorial. It can be a veterans monument. So it's not only those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, but it's those presently serving, I think is a way to think about it. So we will celebrate Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but it doesn't need to be a memorial per se. those were just some thoughts that came up. Also, Wake Forest is a Purple Heart community, so this is more of a sidebar. If that's something the town would like to pursue, that could be something we could talk about as a group. And that's what I wanted to share right now. Would anyone else like to speak towards this slide, or? Okay.
Great.
I think you can
Thank
move
you.
on, Elizabeth.
All right, and ironically, as mentioned earlier about your comparison to Morrisville, we also did Morrisville's Veterans Memorial, which is, you'll see is quite different than Harrisburg's. It is more of a memorial walk. It does accompany, it's within a larger park there, Liberty Park. And so it was part of a project where we also did a stage and kind of performance area. But as you kind of approach that area from their downtowns, it's kind of right off of I can't remember the name of the street now, but it's their main street, and then the street behind it paralleling. If you've ever been to Morrisville, there's they've got a small convention center downtown. This is kind of right behind it. And so this promenade here connects from the street that's kind of behind me taking that photo down to that amphitheater. And then this walkway, let's see if I can zoom in here. So you kind of enter the park and you can continue on the promenade down to a big event or something, or you can pull over into the memorial walk and have more of a, side experience. And when there's not an event, it's a very quiet, peaceful space. We've got benches built into the walkway along the walk, and in this memorial we did have smaller and bronze medallions that were honoring each branch of service. I believe they did 6. I believe Harrisburg did 6 as well. Trying to think. Anyway, not to sway you guys in any direction, I'll just give you the data points. And so this one has a little bit more of a garden feel, more lush. There were some existing trees, so the opportunity for shade was kind of already built in. You can see this is a space they decorate for at Christmas. I think I took these photos in December. And one of the items, instead of having a lot of different things, there was another picture there. Instead of having a lot of different things, there was the series of flags, and then the only other kind of physical object was this sculpture that they commissioned that was basically like kind of like a grandfather with his granddaughter showing her one of his medals, and kind of as if they were sitting there telling the story of him serving in the military. I don't think it was representative of any particular branch, but just kind of indicating that kind of passing the torch of the story and the history in a more kind of quiet, symbolic way versus kind of the more loud and literal way of the Harrisburg Memorial, where it was very, representative, right on the coping and the fountain and all of those things. So this was a little more of a quiet experience with a bit more minimal. This seems to be a little more aligned with some of the things you guys have been talking about this evening, of kind of keeping it very limited with the items. I know Harrisburg's, they came with the laundry list of items to us, so this one is kind of it's incorporated into a larger park, kind of the way yours are, and then has these elements included, so you can have kind of a personal experience, but there's also, if on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, there's space right adjacent to have a larger event. A little less to talk about on this one, so give you a chance to give me some feedback on the thoughts here.
I'd like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, followed by Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
So this example resonates with me way more, Emily. This is very nice. I love the way this area here, that's a welcoming, inviting, it's saying, come in, there's landscaping, there's, there's trees, there's shade. I've never heard us talk, or even the Morrisville Veterans Memorial Foundation ever talk about an actual sculpture, but I could see in this example, columns or whatever to display the 5 branches of government, and this just resonates with me. That's why I didn't have much to say about your other example. I think I'd save my my comments for this. I like this a lot. I think we're on the right path here.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson?
I really like these integrated features for the memorial. I do like the carve-out, if you will, because we're encouraging, there's greenways, and with the stormwater pond, we do want people to, stop and reflect, and this kind of design would be very welcoming. I really do like that shade structure because it offers flexible space as well for different kinds of activities that could be related to the memorial directly, but could be utilized in other ways as well. So it's an interesting feature we might want to consider not only for this space, but for other spaces in the future.
Councilmember Rabadi, please.
It's important to me that the seating be at least part of the day in the shade. I think that it gets so hot here that people are not going to want to sit in the broiling sun, no matter what else you put in there. And I do like the integrated way that it's, like Liz said, it's very welcoming. I'm not a huge fan of red brick. If it has to be brick, that's fine, but I just want to get that out there. I think even the brown brick in this structure is a lot nicer and just a little more elegant. I really like to see like white stone or something very minimalist. But I do like I think this is kind of what we're going for in terms of tone.
Okay, I think those are the comments on this slide. Emily?
All right. So I think that is all I have to show you. So if there's, I'll give you some space now to share any other thoughts, ask me any questions about where we go from here. I can, anything else you want to share or ask. Just want to give you space to do that.
Okay, I just want to say that when you were showing the shade structure at the end, that reminded me a lot of the town center concept plan that we're doing now. So that's what that really reminds me of. Ours will be bigger, but it made me think, should this possibly be incorporated in the town center green later? But I think we have a really good spot, what we're looking at now, and I'd like to move it forward sooner than later. But I just want to share that's what came into my mind when I saw that. And I would love it if the trees would grow large enough to provide shade without us having to create something that's less natural. So those are my thoughts from what we saw on this one. But this one does resonate with me a lot more than the Harrisburg one. Any other thoughts? This has really been really good. I think you've got a lot to look back on.
Yes, yeah, I got
lots of good notes
today.
will come out of this one.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that this is going to circle back through all the places where it's already gone, the Veterans Memorial Committee and the Parks and Rec, and then it will come back to us again. So this is a real evolving process. Okay, great.
Awesome. Well, I really thank you for your time this evening and look forward to showing you what we can come up with from your feedback.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you again. This was really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So real quick, if I may, take a point of privilege. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rao, who wanted to share something real quick.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot in my comments today, but I wanted to take a moment to thank Officer Chad Penland, Officer Tracy Skeeter, and our police department for holding a very successful Special Olympics torch run They exceeded their goal of $2,000. I think they hit 2,600, and I was honored to kick it off. And it was just amazing to see the bikes, and I'm so proud of Chad and our officers for doing such a great event, and proud of our department joining other police departments in terms of embracing inclusivity and supporting the Special Olympics. So thank you, Officer Penland and the team, and it was a great event, and thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Wonderful. At this time, we have one closed session this evening to discuss a personnel matter. As we do not plan to conduct any business after our closed session, I'd like to thank you all for watching this meeting of the Morrisville Town Council in this new space. We hope that you plan to join us again. Please feel free to email your town council members at towncouncil@townofmorrisville.org or visit www.townofmorrisville-org/council for additional contact information. At this point, I'd ask, is staff, does any comments for the good of the order before we go into closed session? Okay, hearing none. At this time, I would ask for a motion to enter into closed session.
I'll move us into closed session, if that's okay. Mayor and council, pursuant to North Carolina's General Statute 143.318.11A6, I move that we go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to ask to go ahead and clear the room. Thank you very much for visiting with us. The council is actually going to be moving into the back room for